welcome to Weekly Property News. I'm Brett Alegre-Wood and this is the 26th of January 2009. Okay, so first of all, happy Australia Day. For those of you that don't know, your Antipodean friends down there, it's Australia Day, so they're all celebrating, and I know a few Australians had a big day yesterday. But anyway, okay, so let's get on with it. Today, we're going to look at the Bank Bailout special. So basically, I'm going to discuss what the Bank Bailout's all about and whether it'll work or not. So we're looking at the previous bailout, which was £37 billion, hasn't hit the target, okay? And quite simply, it failed because it wasn't enough money. And that's the sole reason. It didn't actually provide enough money that was needed. New bailout, up to £200 billion, okay? What we're going to look at is what the government is offering. Will the taxpayers get a return on the investment? Because that's vitally important, okay? And will it work? Okay, so the two solutions that we want to see are the taxpayers' money going to be well spent? And number two, will it actually free up the money and take us out of the recession rather than diving us further in? Then my thoughts for the week, there's going to be more unemployment. Unfortunately, until this sorts itself out, there'll be unemployment. Gradual stabilisation of prices, okay? They've fallen quite a bit. That's going to start to happen. And then I'm going to look at the Portfolio B strategy. It's a new strategy that we're using here at Your Property Club, and we'll talk more about that. Okay, so let's get underway. All right. Here we go. Okay, so first of all, Minister says UK banks come close to collapse. Now, I just want to pick up on this story. What they're saying is that they had about 2 or 3 hours when things got so bad because basically major depositors in various banks began to withdraw large sums of money. So we're not talking about the average person on the street that goes into a branch. We're talking about institutional investors that were willing to pay massive early withdrawal fees or early termination fees to actually get their money out. And that could have bankrupted the system. The whole system of fractional reserve banking that we work under in the current system is based on not being able to do a run on the bank, because £1 in the bank doesn't necessarily mean £1 that's let out, okay? And that's a whole bit of the banking system that we can discuss later. But effectively, if too much money got withdrawn, then the whole banking system could have collapsed. So it was quite serious, okay? Multi-billion pound, no blank check, okay? So the bailout, what Gordon Brown is saying here is, look, it's not a blank check that they're writing off. What they're doing, and let's take a look at what the actual bailout involves, okay? Because this second round, what they're actually doing is they're looking at guaranteeing and effectively providing an insurance policy, okay, for a bank who might have, say, £100 million worth of debt, okay? And whether that be mortgage-backed or any form of debt, it could be credit card, whatever. They will be able to take that £100 million, go to the government and say, right, here, there's the fee, okay, that we're going to pay, and in return we want that insurance policy that if certain people and over a certain level go into repossession or don't stop paying the bills or go bad, that they will take that and then the government will own, and effectively the taxpayer will own that debt, okay? So that's the risk they're taking. Effectively they're becoming an insurance thing. And they're saying that it could be up to £200 billion that the taxman needs to come up with, or the taxpayer needs to come up with. Okay, so that in its essence what they're doing. Effectively, they're buying the toxic assets off the banks, so the banks can then see that their risk levels have dropped and they're able to keep lending. What that'll also do, and most importantly, because that's only one step, but the most important bit is, if the banks have those guarantees, they can then go to institutional investors, such as pension funds, hedge funds, and all these sort of things, and they can say, look, we're guaranteed by the government, they're underwriting all the risk, so therefore lend us some more money. They then have certainty, so then they'll lend the money, and then that should start the whole process flowing. And that, in essence, is what they're trying to do by doing this, okay? Very simply, they're just trying to not only put the money in there and make sure there's money to be lent out, but also to attract other institutional investors that have, large pension funds and things like that, okay? Which right now are keeping their money, close to their chest because they don't want to lend it out and lose it, okay? Great. All right, so RBS set to be the first bank bailout scheme. So effectively, they're the guinea pig. All right, they're now 70% owned by the taxpayer. Now, importantly, okay, most people and most of the media about this is saying that actually this is a bad thing that we're buying all these assets. Well, in actual fact, yes, there is a risk. There's no doubt there is some risk, but the reward is that once the RBS shares go back up, then 70% the government can start selling those assets off at a higher price. Buy low, sell high, which is effectively what looked like and potentially could happen. Okay, so it's not all bad news, and certainly if you look at Northern Rock borrowed. Actually, we'll come to that in a sec, but we'll talk about more Northern Rock. Before we go into that, City lost the plot on bailout. Okay, ministers claim. All right. So what they're saying is effectively the city hasn't really supported the government in doing this. I say they're a bit sceptical about the whole thing, which they're probably got some right to be, because effectively the city's made the mistakes, and when we talk about the city, we're talking about banks and things like that. Here, Brown warning against protectionism. Now, what Brown is introducing is the concept of globalisation, and he's saying effectively, look, this is not a UK problem, this is not a US problem, this is not any individual country. This is actually a global problem now, and it's the first time that we've all hit recession together as a global economy, and that's because there's so many links now in the economy, and we've got to be aware of that what's bad for the US is also bad for the UK, is also bad for Australia, is also bad for a number of different countries, including China, because China's as much as it's growing and all this sort of stuff, it has actually had a downturn too. So it affects everyone. And what Brown is saying is they need to come up with a way that they can communicate and some rules of how business is to be done. Okay, so which is actually quite smart, and I agree with him what he's saying there. All right, UK Minister rejects bank nationalisation. I think this is really important. As much as they're talking about nationalising all the banks and things like that, actually the government doesn't want to be a banker. The government wants to run, or governance if you like, okay? So they want to make sure that the banks are still running themselves. They still want them privately held. They don't want to nationalise, okay? And they've made that very clear that they don't want to do this, all right? So that's important to know. Now, looking at Northern Rock could inject 10 billion or get 10 billion injected to fire the mortgage market. All right, I'm actually quite surprised. I've got 6 remortgages going through in the next 2 months, all of them with Northern Rock. Okay, now what I'm actually doing is I'm looking, and actually Northern Rock's standard variable rate is 5.09, which is actually not a bad rate. So I'm just going to transfer straight across to the standard variable rate and stay with that. My mortgages will go up a little bit because they have come down quite sufficiently, but they're starting to offer some competitive product. And if you look at what Northern Rock did, they paid back. They borrowed 27 million, and I think they paid back 15 million in the first few months or something after that, by actually just trying to get rid of their clients and bringing that cash in. So now what they're saying is, rather than trying to get rid of the clients, because all they did was went on to other banks and used up the cash that other banks could have been lending to other people. But so what they're doing is they're looking at re-lending now and getting out there and lending, and that's what this 10 billion injection is doing. So that's good news. Okay, so my thoughts for the week. Firstly, look, more unemployment until lending returns. This is going to happen because businesses aren't able to borrow the money to support their businesses, so they're shedding staff. That then obviously puts more into a deeper recession. Deeper recession is not good for anyone. Okay, so I think the government's making actual big steps towards that, but unemployment is going to continue to rise. It's at 2 million. They're predicting potentially that it could go to 3.4 million. Okay, so that's quite substantial. All right, the important thing is get yourself sorted. All right, gradual stabilisation of prices, they can't go much lower. Now, some markets will still drop, absolutely, but I've noticed a lot of the property that we're getting, actually prices have stabilised. The values are even saying they can't go any lower. In fact, I bought one the other day that I bought for 60 grand, and actually the valuer said the reinstatement value was 75 grand, so to build it was 75 grand. That means that I bought the land for free, and in fact 15 grand under what it would be cost to build a property. Okay, portfolio strategy B. Now, just want to deal with this quickly. I suggest you go onto our website and have a look at the blog. Effectively, portfolio strategy B is, let's say you bought property 2 years ago. Forget about that, ring fence that off, that's portfolio A. If you're looking at property now, you're looking at low value price, big discounts, because not many people are buying. So what we're looking with a lot of our clients is actually ring fencing that portfolio. Most of it's cash flow positive, so portfolio A. Portfolio B is the new stuff they're adding. Now, when the market comes back, portfolio B will be the first one that you remortgage. Okay, so you look at remortgaging that, and then what will happen is you pull some money out of that, maintain your overall portfolio, your total portfolio, and then eventually the values in portfolio A will come back and you'll be able to use them again. So it's just a really good strategy and fits with the market very well. Okay, jump online, it's yourpropertyclub.com, and you'll see that one of the latest blogs is the portfolio B strategy, and you can read more about that. Until next week, have a great time, and we'll see you then.